Good morning, everyone. Michael Chave here from the Morning Coffee Review series. Here today to give you a rundown on the different subscription options that Bluebeam has released for their Revu 21 licenses. So they switched away from their perpetual versions and are now a SaaS-based company offering a single sign-on service for their Revu 21 licenses, and they switched some things around. So now their new tiers for their licenses are Basic, Core, and Complete. So today I'm going to give you a very in-depth rundown on the differences and why you may choose one over the other. So let's hop on in. I'm going to bring up the website and show you the differences from their charts, but then I'm going to also hop into Revu to show you those differences as well. So let's hop on in and show you that. So as I bring up that website here, we'll see this. So as I scroll down, some of the key differences as we look more towards this key features is what we're going to have. So again, their lowest tier as their new subscription model is called Basics. Then you roll up to Core, which is their medium tier, and then you have Complete, which is their highest tier. So let's scroll on down and look at some of these differences. So right now for Basic, by the way, one key notable item would be the optical character recognition. If you look up here, OCR is part of the Basic. So it is actually included in all tiers now, which prior releases, it was only an Extreme option. Sorry, I had to think if I was right in remembering that. So yeah, it was in their Extreme, which is their old tier, but Basics now comes with it as well. So as we're looking through this, what I'm going to target only are the ones that aren't part of those tiers. So I do recommend coming back into here. If I don't talk about it, that's probably because it was in that tier already. So just in terms of as you're looking back and watching this, we're looking at the ones that are specific to not being part of that tier. So first and foremost, the embedded 360 photos is not part of Basic. So when you're in Revu and I go through and I'm just going to place a markup on a PDF, you can't embed 360 photos. So what does that mean? You can embed 2D photos. So if I go through into here and I right click and I create a capture from file and I go to my images here, I will be able to add a 2D photo in the Basic tier, right? 2D, but I won't be able to embed my 3D photo, which I have one right here, or 360, sorry, not 3D. So 2D, 360, I can't embed this 360 photo in that Basic tier option. Next one is calibrate toolsets to dynamically resize on PDFs. So you can't calibrate them. That doesn't mean that they can't already be calibrated and be used. So you can't set the scales on those dynamic tool sets. So if I apply a scale to this page, we'll go and set this at 330 seconds because that's what the scale is. Now I can't go through and add a set scale. So if you go to your tool sets here and you set a scale so that they're dynamically scalable, you can't set the scale. So right, this isn't at scale. Now it's scalable. You can't set the scale in the Basic tier. Next one is create and save markup legends to the tool chest. So you can't create them and you can't save them. So what does that mean? We'll go through and use this job site one that I have here for flooring. I can't go through and create a legend for these and save my legend layout for them either. So be aware that is not capable in that Basic tier. And really the Basic tier is more for that admin workflow, just so we're all aware as I'm going through this. But you can't go through and do that. Next one is create, view, and apply custom hatches. So you can't create them, you can't view them, and you can't apply custom hatches. So if I go back into Revu, I did that for this one. It already had them pre-created, but we'll just make a rectangle here, hatches, right? So I can't view custom ones. You can from the ones out of the box, which I don't remember which ones are out of the box, but you can't manage, create, or add any new ones if you wanted. And what is a hatch pattern, right? There we are. So going back, the next one is calibrated polygons polylines, rectangles, ellipses using sketch to scale tools. I was confused there where they were going with that one. So you can't sketch to scale. So as I go into here, you do have the option to sketch things at scale. So I set the scale already. Now I can do, this is 10-foot tab by 10-foot square, right? This is at scale on the PDF. You can't sketch to scale. So these orange color icons, which are also found under tools, sketch to scale, you don't have access to those in the basic tier. But again, the ones we just covered are all part of core and complete. Next one is create custom statuses. Now that doesn't mean you can't use custom statuses. That just means you can't create them. So what is a custom status? I love to do this with revision clouds. Right now, they're not part of my creation. So I'll go to statuses here, and my status is now here. So you have the ones that are already pre-created or someone has created for you. You can't go into the drawbar here, go to manage status, and create custom statuses. I like using these because I'm going to modify one, which you can't do in that core subscription. I mean, in the basic, sorry. Now I can go through and mark completed, right? So you can't create them, doesn't mean you can't use them in basic. Filter and sort markup list comments. So in here, you can't go through in the basic tier, you can't sort, which means grab things to sort the data by the columns in your markups lists. You can't also go through and filter. So this filter option is a amazing tool. They changed this, I think it was in 2019 was when they came out with the multi-filter. 2018 was like, you can only filter by one column. So you can't go through and filter by multiple columns. Maybe I want to go through and look at just flooring and, you know, specific flooring ones that are a specific dimension, right? You can't go through and filter out your information here in the markups lists, which doesn't help because if you go and try to print that, you print by default whatever's showing here, and you can't go through and filter and sort what's showing here to print out your reports. So again, can't go through and filter and sort the markups list. So that is the document markup and tracking things that you can't do. There's one key notable thing here. You can also not do that in the core subscription. So be aware, core subscription does not allow you to do what I just did, which is filter and sort your information in the markups lists. So if you are heavily using that markups list for your PDF reports or Excel, or going through and a CSV file, right? Being aware you can't go through and customize your exports out in terms of the markups list just by sorting the data there, unless you have complete. So there is a differentiator here in this first portion, core, that one. You're probably going to want complete if you're going to be using that in your workflow. And that is also part of that basic platform. But core had everything else earlier that we talked about that wasn't part of that basic platform. Now, scrolling down, we're going to go back through. This one is specific to content creation, access, and management. So the next one is automatically create bookmarks and page labels. So you can't do that in the basic one. And what does that mean? So I'll close this out. I'll open up another one. You can't automatically create bookmarks or page labels. I'll do page labels first because then I'll create my bookmarks from my page labels. But I can't go through and say, hey, create page labels from a page of region data. So I'm going to do this with my number first, and then an underscore, add data here. So it has the names, and I'm going to hit OK and run it. You can't do this, which you also can't do this from doing that, which is creating your page labels from that page region. I can't go through and create my bookmarks either from doing that. Okay. So that's one thing you can't do with the basic. You're probably going to want core if you want to go through and do that. Mark up a 3D view. What is that? So you can create 3D PDFs. For those folks that did not know that, you can. I'm going to go through and create 3D PDF here. Well, I'm not going to create it. I already created one. But what I'm going to show you is marking it up. So you can't go through and mark up in a 3D view. So if I go here and, you know, there's an issue right around here, I click this. You don't have to click it. I just clicked it. But I mark up this portion here. You can't mark up in that 3D 3D, yeah, I was gonna say 360, but 3D view. So bringing you into that markup, right? You can't go through and do that in the basic subscription. So that was this one right here. The next one is going to be compare 2 or more PDF revisions using the overlay pages. So you can't do that in the basic. Another workaround, if you wanted to do that, even though it's not part of the basic, would be just copying and pasting as a snapshot, which I have a video on my channel for that same thing. But you can't do it with the tool that they have. So that tool is right here under the documents. You can't go through and overlay 2 PDFs to see the differences. So that is part of not basic, but is part of core and complete. Next one is process colors. So if you wanted to go through and process colors, you can't go through and do that in basic, but you can in core and complete. What does that mean? So if I wanted to go through and color process a PDF, which I guess would hurt you for trying to go through and do this with the snapshot overlay tool from my other videos. So I guess I take that back. Can't do that. So going through and doing color process documents, color processing right here. If you want to change things like anything that is, we'll just do colorize. It's the easiest thing to do. You can't go through and colorize your PDFs. So be aware of that, or your snapshots, which would have been that other workflow for overlay. So you can't go and actually do that in basic. Next one is create markup and manipulate 3D PDFs from an IFC or U3D file. So you can't create or markup or manipulate 3D PDFs. So you can't actually create 3D PDFs unless you have core complete, and you can't add them in as IFC and U3D either. Next one is open, create, and modify sets. So you can't use the sets panel, which is proprietary to Bluebeam, by the way. So what is a set? It is a set of documents that don't actually live together, but are shown together with this app in Bluebeam. It's not an app, it's a panel. I know everyone's gonna comment on that. But so if I go into here and I go to creating sets, these PDFs don't live together. I've already created them, so that's why these are already here, but I'll show you. These PDFs don't live together here, right? But they show as if they are together. So you can't go through and create them, modify them, or even open them in the basic tier. But you can do that in core and complete. So that is that part up here. That is the content creation, access, and management. Next one, navigation personalization. So you can't go through and you cannot go through and use the search by symbol. You can search by text, but you can't search by symbol. So what is that? So if I go into here, the basic tier does not allow you to go through, well, let's do something different here. If you wanted to go through and apply a count to all of your syncs, if I go to search, you can search by text in basic. You cannot search by visual, which is, hey, I'm going to go through and grab this sync here and search for it in my entire document as well. So I searched it, found it, apply counts. You can't search by visual in basic. You can in core and complete. Scrolling down. Measurement tools. This is huge, so be aware. With basic, you cannot use advanced measurements. And what is advanced to Bluebeam? It is the perimeter measurement, volume, angle, or count. So if I go back into review, if I go over here to my measurements panel, you cannot use angle, perimeter, or count. Not able to do that in basic, but you can in core and complete. Next one is add formulas to custom columns for calculations. So you cannot go through and add formulas in review in the markups lists in order to formulate values. So if I go into a PDF here, I already have it open. I know what I'm doing. Sorry. If I make a markup, apply scale, this is 16th. You cannot create custom columns to get values for formulas. If I go to manage columns here, custom, I add a cost. I can add a cost. Well, let me confirm. Can you not create any custom columns? add formulas to custom columns for calculations. It doesn't say you can't use custom columns. We'll see down in the other ones if it does say it. But so you could do cost, right? Numerical value, currency, boom. You can't do this next one, which would be total cost and formula. So you can't use this formula one, which is taking that expression of cost times a measurement gives you a value. So you cannot go through and do that natively in Revu. You can in Core and Complete. Next one is link real-time data to Excel. So if you didn't know, you can grab data, meaning measurements, from a marked up PDF. So if I wanted this value of area to be brought into Excel live, meaning that if I change this markup in Excel, does it update the Excel file for this measurement that's into Excel? Can I do that in Basic? No, you cannot do it in Core either, but you can in Complete. Next one is dynamic fill. So this one, you would want to go through and, place multiple markups in an area. Let's just say this open area, and you didn't want to pick each point in here. You can use dynamic fill for this, and dynamic fill will allow you to go through and fill in an area. So you don't have to, oops, I should have added a boundary line for these. But just, we're just showing an example here. You can critique me if you want. But if I wanted to go through and apply, a perimeter value for this one, an area measurement in a volume in a space, apply all at once, you cannot do this in Basic or Core. You can in Complete. So at any point, as we're going through this, if you're like, oh, I want to do that, then you obviously need the version that allows you to do it. So just be aware as you're going through and you're like, oh, for quantity link, it's not a differentiator. I don't want that, but I do want to add custom columns. So then you're probably going to want Core, right? And if you want real link data, you're going to have Complete. Studio. So this is a big one. You cannot create new Studio projects and sessions in Basic. That doesn't mean you can be invited. So if you're invited to a session or a project, you can join it in Basic. However, you cannot go into Bluebeam Revu, go to Studio panel, and don't save this markups, boom. You cannot go in here and hit plus and say new session, or go through and say, hey, new project. You can, however, be invited to one and still get access to it. There's a caveat there because I know there's limitations to what you can do in there with Basic, but just be aware you cannot create them. Doesn't mean you can join them. Doesn't mean you cannot join them. But you cannot create them. You can still join them. Hopefully that's a little clearer there. Plugins and integrations, you cannot have the plugin into, if you have Basic, into AutoCAD or Revit. You do not get the plugin if you are trying to create 3D PDFs. So basically, you have limited plugin capabilities under Basic tier. Security for digital signatures, you get everything in every tier. Perfect. Automation. So in Basic, you cannot batch compare multiple drawing revisions. So there's a batch compare feature which will highlight differences of the PDFs, meaning it'll create a revision cloud. You cannot get this capability in Basic. Okay. So that is that one right here. Where are we at? Batch compare. Yeah, that was right. Next one, automatically create navigational hyperlinks across specific groups of documents using batch link. And you do not have this capability in Basic, Core either, but you do in Complete. So if you want to, let's say you didn't print out a Revit or you printed from Revit, because Revit does create hyperlinks automatically if it's a combined set. If it's separately printed, it won't. So for this instance, hey, I can't click on things to hyperlink to that sheet. So can I do this in Revu? You can by using batch link, which you do not have access to if you have Basic or Core. You do have access if you have Complete. So if you wanted to say new, I can go through in here and say add my open files, hit next, and I can actually grab page region data here, like the number, and say, hey, create hyperlinks for me and run this, and it'll create hyperlinks 94 for me. So now I can click this and jumps me to that page. So you cannot do this if you do not have complete. So if you have core basics, that's a no-go. Next one is batch process hyperlinks for large document sets. So if you wanted to batch process hyperlinks, you cannot do this in basic or core. Next one is automatically insert new page revisions or replace current pages with new revisions across. So this is the slip sheet option. I have a video if you want to watch how to do that, but you do not have access to slip sheets into a set and bring those markups over from that one PDF to the next one and like supersede with an X or the supersede option that you have in there, or remove them. So you do not have the slip sheet option if you have basic or core. You do if you get complete. Next one is apply digital signatures and professional seals. So this one's, so up here you're able to do most signature stuff, but there's one option you can't do, which is if I wanted to go into tools, batch, sign and seal, and across all PDFs, apply a signature and a stamped seal on all of my PDFs in one go. That's this tool that you would use. You cannot do that unless you have complete. It's going back into here. If you don't have complete, you cannot do that. Implementing scripting. So if you want to implement any scripts into here, you cannot unless you have complete as well. Scrolling down, what can I not export? So moving onward. Basic, you can go through and generate and export out PDF summaries. However, what can't you do with Basic? You cannot generate and export a CSV or XML of all markup files. So if you have Basic, you can't export out to Excel because those are the formats, CSV or XML. But you can with Core Complete. Next one down, track and generate reports on markups located in predefined customized regions. So you cannot track or generate reports on markups by predefined customized regions. Cannot do that in Basic. You can in Core and Complete. Next one is, this is a huge one. You cannot create markup summary reports with customized filter and sort options unless you have Complete. So if you're creating standards for people to export out markups list data, you cannot use this columns or filter and sort data by loading the configuration and saving the configuration unless you have Complete. That's a huge one. Next one, markup editor. So there's only one here. You cannot collaborate in real time with markup tools on drawings and documents. So that seems to me like sessions. This, you can get into sessions, but there are some specific things you can't do in sessions. So like, we'll look at that up. Studio sessions, limitations by tiers. I don't know if that's like how I would look that up. What can I do in studio sessions? I'll find it, drop the link below. I'm obviously going to have to do a bunch of research. Not really. I have it saved somewhere. But basically, there are some things you can't do in studio sessions if you have the basic tier. So that's just more refined of what markup tools you get access to in sessions. But that's what this is commenting at. Last one. Yep. Last one here is field tools. So field tools you do not get access to if you have basic. So Bluebeam, when they released Review 21, they also released Bluebeam Cloud. So Bluebeam Cloud is their new online platform or web-based platform that also is an application for your phone, like an iPhone, Android, that allows you to access PDFs in the field. So if you want to track revisions or, well, not revisions. I mean, you can update the PDF sets. If you want to track RFIs, punch lists, and submittals out in the field, You don't get access to them if you have Core Complete. You are essentially a free user in those applications, which is you can address things that are assigned to you. So you essentially become a free user in that platform if you have basic tier. You don't get the other accesses, which is all of this stuff right here in the Core and Complete subscription. So if that's a differentiator to you, be aware of that. You don't pay extra for the cloud app, but I guess you do pay extra per tier of what you can do in the cloud app. You get access to it regardless of what tier you're in. You just can't do specific things in that app unless you have Core Complete tier. So that is the list. I will add a link to what you cannot do with the basic tier in Studio Sessions. One thing is you can't create them. There are some limitations to markups in Studio Sessions as well, which I'll drop the link in the comments after this. But thank you all for listening to me today on the different tier subscriptions that are now available for Review 21. If you have any questions, link them down in the comment below. If you listen through this whole thing, please throw up the thumbs button or the like. Subscribe if you do like my videos. I'll be posting them regularly on all things Bluebeam and more in the future. So if you do like them, please post them in the comment. If you're looking for a better tip, please also comment on it. But thank you all for listening today on the different tier options for Bluebeam Revu 21 in their new subscription model of Review. Thank you.